Good evening, everyone. Michael Devine here for another episode of Gray Matters Radio. I'm your host. I'm your host, Michael Devine, America's counselor. What exactly does America's counselor do? Well, I don't know. We're not really quite sure yet. We're having our intern kind of research that. What exactly America's counselor does? I think it has something to do with unfucking America and bringing us together. I don't know. Bill, what do you think?
I mean, I saw we were taking some heat in the social media world of the last week's episode. But,
Yeah.
I guess it kind of goes with the territory. What do you, any comments
Yeah,
or thoughts on that?
Well, if last week's we had some chatter, we're definitely gonna have some chatter after tonight's episode. But I guess America's Concert, I'm here to kind of bring everyone together, de-escalate things,
Yeah.
try to find the elusive common ground, the in between or the gray.
What I thought was interesting about those comments, and, everyone's entitled to their opinion, obviously, but
Well, are they?
well, it
they
makes
are,
you
yeah,
wonder:
they
did
are.
people just read the headline of the show, or did they
Yeah.
actually listen or watch the show? Because I think had they actually listened to it or watched the show, they would have seen it was more to we weren't just putting down Antifa, but rather like you had kind of stated, we were saying that they're not going to get anything changed the way they're doing it, but rather not that Antifa of themselves. Now I was probably more critical of Antifa than you were
Yeah.
as a whole, but it was more, it was saying like there's a better way to do it.
Yeah.
As opposed, like you could still get your message across and actually to have real change, like you said, hit them where it hurts the most in the wallet, get an endorser or a celebrity or someone who is kind of an influencer. I hate using that term.
Influence.
Yeah,
I wish we were influencers.
social influencers. That's what
Maybe one day we'll be an influencer. I don't know if we are one, but maybe one day.
Maybe I just anyway, but yeah, get a real influencer who can. That's like you said with Kaepernick, he made a change with one tweet more than all those people combined probably have. So,
And it's funny that's actually ironically my what the fuck segment
right.
is what the fuck is with people not actually reading the article, listening to the podcast, watching the video, and instead being reactive. Now I should be surprised. I mean, because they did a study where it was over 60% of people of whatever they share, they don't actually read. They just read
Right.
the headline,
Yeah.
which is why websites like
I'm guilty of that sometimes.
we
too.
all are, right? And I mean, it's why the Drudge Report exists, and what it does is that they just very crafty headlines and anticipating that majority of people are not actually going to, read the article or watch the video. And that's where I'm like, what the fuck? It's like you come on our page, right? You
Mhm.
make a comment on it, and then it's like, where do we go as a country when I'm agreeing with you, but then you'll argue with me, and it's clearly evident you didn't even actually listen to the show, and it's like, just read the show. And then not only that, well, I'm not going to listen to that. It's like, are you?
And then at the end, he's like, "Oh, and by the way, you should listen to my show."
Literally, it's
that was the
like,
best part.
man, it
You-
was a
you-
mind-numbing
all I
week. It
kept
really
thinking
was.
when I was reading that. All I kept thinking
What?
was, "Okay, boomer." In the words of our immortal, sometimes co-host Holly Fry.
Yeah.
Okay, boomer.
And I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it maddens you as much as it maddens me.
I know it made you upset because I know you, and I know you're a really calm guy most of the time. But I know that like
most of the time.
Well,
at least,
you
at least
re-
until I start doing this
well,
show.
you really are. I mean, you really are. I would say out of the two of us, I mean, we both have our moments, but I would say I'm probably more of the hothead. I mean,
Yeah.
you have you erupt like a volcano. I think one time someone called you a Jewcano. I think that was Leather. I think it might have been.
I think it was
Leatherman.
actually
I
Leatherman.
think
Yeah.
that was one of the funnier things he's ever said. But I'm the kind of the same way. I'm like, I'm cool, and then like it's not cool, and like I know I just must punch a hole in the wall or set the entire building on fire or whatever you need to do. But yeah, I thought that was strange that you probably, even though we're both kind of in the middle, you probably leaning a little more to the left,
Yeah.
me leaning slightly more to the right on some issues.
Yeah.
But there you are trying to defend yourself against someone who probably was pretty far left, just based on what I was able to gather.
Sometimes you can't even tell anymore because it's
Well,
like
I just kind of based on what I was looking at, and I think one of the shirts he had on was said "Viva la Revolucion." So just take a wild guess there that he's probably not into the mainstream or how things are now. Probably wants some pretty, I don't know, I could be wrong on that, but that was my take on it. So
Well, you start getting an idea of why people are far left and far right. It's like you can't be anything but far left or far right when you literally do not even want to read
yeah,
anything that discredits or says something different than what you believe.
right.
And then what's maddening is that they will completely discredit any information. Oh, that's a liberal thing. Well, that's
Yeah,
this. That's a
that's
conservative. It's
fake
like,
news.
and it's like, so pretty much anything that doesn't agree with what it is you believe is fake news, but yet there's no comprehension, understanding.
Well,
It's a surface level understanding of every
well,
issue.
let's be honest. If you see an article that says, it's written by Fox News, and it's, complimentary of President Trump,
Hmm.
you're probably going to roll your eyes. Some people, if you see articles that are negative of Republicans or President Trump or whatever, of quote unquote conservative beliefs,
Yeah.
but they say it's written by the New York Times or the Washington Post or something, you kind of roll your eye. I mean, I do the same thing.
Yeah, you
You,
do.
it's
But
hard
we at
to
least
find.
read it, though. I
But
think,
that's kind of what we kind of
yeah.
did. One of these things, I think we kind of started the show, and this show, if you will, is we kind of got tired of that nonsense. We're like, you know what? There's a better way. Like, you might not always agree with what we say, and we're not always going to be right,
And I think
but we're going to try to give it to you straight.
exactly.
Try to.
And it's like literally like, hey, if there's a different opinion out there or different evidence, that's
Yeah.
great. But and the thing it's tough is that I think it's more just because we're really focusing a lot on social media outreach. Holly's really kind of got our butts in gear, and I've been a lot more active on Twitter, and it is great because it does get people. It does, you get a sense of what's out there, and you get a sense of how people react, but. You do get this distinct sense then of like you understand why our country is so polarized when we do live in different realities and people aren't interested in changing that reality. They want to stay in it, and then there's almost like a value judgment that gets thrown at you, and it almost makes like somebody like myself. I don't know if you feel this way, where I almost want to engage in a fight. I almost want
Yeah.
to, but I don't though. But then it's frustrating. Like, how do I talk? How do I explain? How do I? And I think I'm getting a little bit better at it, but I know I'm not particularly spectacular at it. And it is something I have to figure out, because that's the whole point of the show
Mm-hmm.
is finding ways to explain things in a different way.
Right.
And I do see how it is easy to almost almost walk around certain issues because, oh my God, that's going to incite this, or I'm afraid I'm going to say that. But like, I got to stop that mental kind of thing. And so I think tonight's topic actually
Kind of goes along with that.
goes along with that, and I've actually thought about this one. These are conversations that I think I've had privately with clients, I've had privately with people, but it's just the whole idea of like, I don't think I've hid the fact that I kind of like Mayor Pete.
Yeah, you
I'm
have
not-
been a big proponent of him.
Yeah, I'm not saying like I'm going to vote for him yet, but so far of all the candidates, he's the one I like. I love his ideas. I love his brand of moderatism, or being a moderate. But there's something that no one's really talking about that I think we need to kind of bring up. And it's the whole debate of whether or not this country is ready for a gay president. Because no one's talking about it. Everyone is kind of talking around it.
Well, there's so many candidates still. It's
Yeah.
hard to even, and let's be honest, you got your CNNs and the liberal media, they have their favorites.
Yeah.
They want Biden.
Yeah.
They want Biden.
Mhm.
Just like they wanted Hillary 4 years ago. They want Biden.
Yeah.
They might not say it, but they look at the coverage. Look at the debate, who gets all the time, or
Yeah.
who gets, or they want, or Warren. I mean, that seems like, I don't think they've made up their mind, but that seems to be two of their.
Yeah, it's interesting because as soon as Mayor Pete started getting some serious traction, not like a blip, but like a legitimate trend line,
Mhm.
all of a sudden now the progressives have started letting into him, and it's almost kind of like,
It's like with Andrew Yang.
yeah, I'm like watching this, and I'm like, what is your guys' point? Because I've had conversations with people off the air where it's like, for example, I have a lot of clients that are very strong about wanting a female candidate, right? And a lot of people, they want a female candidate so bad that it doesn't matter who
Doesn't
anybody else
matter.
is. They want to be female candidate, right? And the thing is, like, I get it. Like, women have had their time. But to me, I look at with an election like this, you can't go off of the idea of what you want, right?
Well, if you get, not just a female president, but any president that's quote unquote new or different.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Barack Obama. I am of the opinion that Obama did an okay to good job.
Yeah.
There were some things that I didn't agree with. The deal with Iran. But whatever.
Yeah.
Overall, I thought he did a pretty good job considering what he inherited from the Bush administration. You know, the worst recession since the Great Depression. Right?
Yeah.
So, but my point is, though, had Obama been a terrible president, I mean, not just like
Epically bad.
not just
Yeah.
conservatives saying he's terrible because they're going to say whoever's a Democrat president is terrible, right?
Yeah.
But had he actually just bombed or been a lame duck or whatever, I'm not saying that people wouldn't have voted for an African American again, but they would have held it. Well, the last time we had an African American as a president, everything went to crap, or this didn't happen, or I lost my job, or whatever. You know, they blame him for, your dog getting hit by a car. They find a reason to blame the president.
Yeah.
But my point is, though, like what you're saying is that you just push any female candidate out there to be just the first female president, which would be a good thing. But if it's not a quality candidate or a person that can be a good president, pig-headed men, I'm not saying I'm one of them, but I know a lot of them. I know people that
we're well aware of them.
Well, but they're going to say, oh, look what that woman, I told you last time there was a woman in the White House,
Yeah.
They're going to say, look what happened.
It's
So
out there.
all I'm saying you should push quality over what someone is, like physically or religiously or sexuality wise. And I'm not saying those people aren't qualified or won't be good. We don't know. But I'm just saying, America's very fragile about change. We don't always love
totally.
change.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of change in my life. My wife tells me all the time, I'm a creature of habit. Not to that extent to politics, but just in general. And I think a lot of Americans are just like, well, I mean, look at John Kennedy. People didn't want him in the White House because
he was
why?
Catholic,
Because
right?
he was Catholic.
Yeah.
People were worried. They actually
he was
thought,
young and he was Catholic. Yeah.
They actually thought that the Pope would be calling the shots and running the White House.
They were even bringing up the in psychology. They even talked about how the Irishmen were like Freud always joked around that the Irish were almost impervious to therapy.
Yes.
And so he's not going to listen to reason. Literally,
he's got that Irish temper.
Yeah. You're right. This country doesn't exactly have an awesome track record with change, right?
Yeah.
But and I look at, this whole idea of, is the country ready for a gay president? Because, and this is where I'm perplexed why, I guess I kind of get it, but it's one of those things where it's an obvious question to ask. Now, the thing is, I don't give a shit. I have gay friends, gay colleagues. I don't give a shit, right? I look at everyone, whatever you do in your bed, that's what you do in your bedroom. I don't care, right?
I don't know that it's because he's going to be gay. I think some people are going to have a problem with, which is going to kind of sound stupid, is all of a sudden, how are they going to address his husband? He's the first husband. So that's what people have a problem with, like them holding hands, right? I'm telling you, people are like, that's so awkward. That's so weird.
This is what's interesting.
What's that going to say to other countries?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm just saying that's what I think that the people that are against having a president that's a homosexual, in their mind, so the guys that are kind of more closed-minded and where's it going to look?
But let me ask you a question. Number one, what do you personally think is the country ready? Then number two, why is it you heard more chatter about America being ready for a black president, but no one's asking that question of, is America ready for a gay president? Why the difficulty to bring it up?
That's a good question. That's a good question. And why aren't we talking about that more? That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think part of it, like we touched on a little bit ago, was, I think it's the media coverage. I think the media really wanted, or some of them wanted Barack Obama to win. I mean, it made a good story. He was a good candidate. He had good ideas. People, he was had a magnetic personality, right? And I'm not saying Mayor Pete doesn't have those things, but Obama was a good, solid candidate, and also timing at the right time. Coming out of the George W. Bush presidency, people wanted nothing to do with, even Republicans
didn't want anything to do
with it. They didn't
yeah.
have Bush campaign, right? McCain didn't have, the sitting president did not campaign for, think about that for a second. Like, that's insane. They didn't want, and it wasn't because he didn't want to, it's because they were like, you know what, we're cool.
Yeah.
You stay you stay on Pennsylvania Avenue. We got this. Like, that's unheard of. That's how unpopular Bush was. That they were just, it was like, you didn't want to touch him. It was like,
it was like kryptonite. I mean,
absolutely. And I was one. I mean, I didn't like Bush. I couldn't. I voted for John Kerry. Now I look back, I kind of laugh because I think Kerry's a little bit of a clown. But at the time, I was like, the hell with Bush. I really want to Kerry. Like, I was heartbroken.
Swift voted.
Well, he kind of did.
Yeah, he
but
did,
I was really heartbroken when Kerry didn't win. I was like, son of a bitch, Bush. He did it. I was mad. I thought I was mad when Gore got robbed. but I was really mad when Kerry lost. Like I was like,
Yeah.
how the hell do you two
I'm
times?
still trying to figure out how this one literally the term you got swift boated, right?
Yeah.
Somehow they were able, Karl Rove and all their brain trust was able to make an issue out of this is the guy that fought in Vietnam. They were challenging whether or not he was a real hero for a guy that basically got National Guard flying duty because his daddy was the VP, was the assistant director of the CIA at the time.
Yeah,
And
he
yet
was the director
somehow
of CIA.
they're going, he's not really a hero. This guy got out of jail. Like, don't give me.
Well,
You know what grinds my gears?
yes.
Sorry.
Well, it's what you're saying. Back to what you were saying
Yeah.
about having the first gay president is I almost. This is going to sound kind of weird to say,
Mhm.
but it's almost like even just in since the last election cycle or 2 cycles ago or what 8 years ago,
Yeah.
12 years ago, I don't know, being gay, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but
Yeah.
I mean being gay is not as a big deal as it was 10
I
years
was
ago.
wondering.
And I mean that in
yeah.
a good way. I mean exactly what we're saying is
Yeah.
how it shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not just saying for me or you. I'm talking about America as a whole, as the average person. You know, people would have their opinion. I mean, look at Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
She didn't support gay marriage. I mean, she was publicly against it up until was it 8 or 12 years ago when
Yeah.
when she decided to run for the big office. How convenient. Oh, I said no, I changed my mind. I've whatever. That's her opinion,
It's-
but she's
It is an
entitled to it.
interesting, yeah. It's
But I think it's almost not as big of a deal, and I also think too that and not to say that gay people have not had their struggles, they have endured quite a bit over the years, and it's a very good thing that they are able to marry whoever
Absolutely,
they
yeah.
want. I think it's great that they have equal rights. I think that the LGBT community has
well, I
come
mean,
together and as
oh
strengthened
yeah,
together, and
yeah.
I don't know that they. And again, this is going to sound terrible, so don't
No,
rake me over the coals. I'm not saying they haven't endured a lot, but when you look back at like the civil rights era and you look at African Americans, what they were put through, being forced to sit on the back of the bus, not being allowed to sit in white waiting rooms,
Mhm.
having the fire hoses turned on by the police, having the dogs sicked on them, being lynched. And I'm not saying that terrible things have not happened
Yeah.
to the gay community and the lesbian community.
You're
'cause
just talking
it
about
has.
your theory,
But
as
I'm
to-
just telling you,
yeah.
historically, it seems like it's been a long time coming for African Americans. It's been up this mountain. It's just equality. All they want is equality, right?
Mhm.
And they finally have achieved some of it. It still isn't. There's still racists and bigots
Yeah,
out there.
of
and
course,
there always
yeah.
will be.
Yeah.
But I think that was such a long trek and such a long journey, and it's so well documented. And it's just, I mean, it's in all the history books. And you look at like Dr. Martin Luther King and the things that he did, and with the gay community, I think that while they have had very, very strong struggles, I don't know that it's quite to the level as the
Mhm.
African. And I know that sounds terrible. I should say it hasn't been as documented. I
Mhm.
guess. Does that make sense at all? I
I get what you're.
I don't know. I know that's going to sound terrible, so please don't
Well,
send me
I think
hate
what
mail.
you're trying
I'm
to
not
help.
saying that it's.
I think you're
it's-
trying to figure out why is it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to. I
It's
think,
not that big of a deal.
Well, it's a big deal to have a gay president, but I'm saying it's not as big of a deal in a good way
Mhm.
because it's more mainstream, and like you said, more
But
people.
here's-
I don't care.
But here's what's interesting. So this is what's really interesting about this topic. All right. So
Mhm.
it first jumped out at me during the last debate where Mayor Pete has taken a big hit with the African American community. And just he doesn't have a lot of support. Biden has it really consolidated, but a lot of people are
Why
saying
does Biden have that consolidated?
just because his history of civil rights, he was a big champion for civil rights in the 60s, and he has a lot of inroads. I mean, the guy's been a senator for 30 years or something.
Yeah.
And
It
so
just seems like a 75-year-old white male.
yeah, but he was an OG, but
multi-millionaire.
him and like Bernie were OGs of the civil rights movement. They literally were part of it when they were pushing the laws and changing it. So
Yeah.
he's not a maintainer of it. He was actually someone that actually was really involved with it. And so it jumped out at me during the last debate when Mayor Pete was talking, because he's trying to court the African American to vote, and it's no secret the African American community is less accepting of homosexuality and transgender than a lot of other populations. So, but there was something where he said, and I thought it was brilliant, where he was basically, someone was talking about, what do you know about persecution? He's just like, he basically said, like, I'm part of a population where people, we weren't even allowed to be married up until a couple years ago. So he goes, if anyone knows up here, aside from African Americans, like what it's like to be persecuted and have to fight for your rights,
Well,
who else would know that?
well,
But no, he didn't say though.
mhm.
He never said gay. He never said homosexuality. I thought it was odd how here we have a gay candidate who's married, and he almost even danced around it.
Yeah.
I talked with several people. I talked with colleagues that were gay. I even had clients that are gay, and I've even talked to him about, hey, like, because one of my clients the other day, we were talking about how I go, it's so crazy that our children are going to grow up in an era where it's like they're going to sit there and go, kind of like the way we looked at African Americans not able to ride the bus or to drink out of the same
We're gonna
fountain.
look
And
at
we
you
look at it
crazy.
going, oh my God, they're going to look at it going, gay people weren't allowed to marry.
Well,
It's weird how quickly that's shifted. But
yeah.
but the
It's
thing
not the same exact struggle. I mean, it's both a struggle.
yeah, they're
But
different, similar, and
they took different paths.
civil rights is civil rights, right?
Yeah.
Differing types of civil rights, differing area. But it was this interesting, and I even asked one of my clients, I go, it's kind of weird because no one's talking about gay anything anymore. It seems like, I mean, do you guys feel like you've taken a back seat to like transgender?
That's what I'm saying,
and
though. It's like it's not a big deal, as big of a deal
So-
as it would have been 10 years ago.
So I had multiple people that were, gay, lesbian, gay. And when I asked them, hey, do you want to come on the air to talk about? No, I don't want to talk about it. Everyone I talked to about this, they talked to me off there and gave me permission to share what we talked about. They did not want to come on here to talk about it. And there is this odd hesitancy. So it's kind of like I have people in the community that are hesitant to talk about it.
Yeah.
I have professionals that are hesitant to talk about this. We have a gay candidate who almost seemingly is almost dancing around even using the term.
Well, don't you think, though, with that, like, Mayor Pete is damned if he does and damned if he doesn't.
Oh, without a
And
doubt.
because
Yeah, absolutely.
if he doesn't talk about it, then some people who want that spotlight to be on it and bring attention to the homosexual, lesbian, cause, if you will,
Yeah.
or say, well, why haven't you mentioned this? Why aren't you being more of an advocate? Or why aren't you being more outspoken?
Yeah.
We really need you, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's gonna be the other people that as soon as he mentions it, they're like, oh, see, there it is. Why do you keep talking about it? Blah blah blah. Don't you stick to the
Yeah.
issues? We don't care whether they're for him or against him. People are gonna say, dude, stick to the issues. Like, I'm more of a stick to the issues, and not because I'm not
Yeah.
comfortable with him being gay. It's because I don't care. I don't care so much that I don't want to hear about it. I personally don't want to hear about your sexuality.
yeah.
I don't want to hear about
Yeah.
your race, your gender, your religion. I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
can you balance the budget? Can you keep us out of World War III? Can you keep the economy looking good?
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm concerned with. Everything else is just kind of, side dressing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I know it's very important to some
Yeah.
people, but people were like,
Yeah.
Obama, remember people, oh, Obama's a Muslim. He's a Muslim, don't you? I know he isn't.
He's a fucking Christian.
I was hoping,
he goes to church more than I think Trump does.
I was hoping, I was hoping Obama actually was.
Yeah.
I was hoping he'd come out and say, you know what?
Allah Akbar, motherfuckers.
What? Yeah, because so what? And you know what it would do? Everyone would be all up in arms for like a day, there's detraction, and then everyone would go,
Okay, now what?
yeah. But that's my point, though. I almost kind of secretly hoped he was, to get over that hurdle.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. What if no one knew that Mayor Pete was gay? Like, somehow he just, I don't know, no one knew, and he got elected, and like a day later, he's like, oh yeah, by the way, here's my dude.
Yeah.
I mean, and people were like,
Yeah.
yeah, well, I guess maybe not. Maybe right away they'd be, someone would be up in arms. Like, let's say he had a couple really good years in the economy, everything was going well, and maybe he just won re-election. You go, yeah. Like, I remember when, Ellen DeGeneres. Remember the old Ellen DeGeneres show back in the '90s when she was like the first major character to come out, and she came out on her show. Well, we already knew she was gay, but the character on her show
Officially came out on her show.
I remember watching that, and it was like, and when she came out, I think in real life. She was on the cover of like People or something like that, and it was picture her, and it said something to the effect of, "Yep, I'm gay."
I do remember that,
and I was like,
that cover.
And I was like, that's perfect, because people are like, well,
Well, actually, I have one of the people I talked to. I got a really interesting story about that, so I'm gonna actually come right back to that. So I'm gonna go back. One of the things you're saying, like, okay, is it a big deal? Is it really not a big deal? So what I wanted to do was, one of the things I preach on the show, my what the fuck segment was, why is no one actually looking deeper into things and just jumping to conclusions? I'm like, all right, well, I'm not going to do that, right? I talked to some people.
You know, jump to conclusions, Matt.
I know. Jump to conclusions.
It's the worst idea I've ever heard of in my life.
So I want to do some research, and I was trying to understand like really where we at as a country. So the best corollary I had was when Obama was president, and I remember when Obama. When he announced that he was going to run, and I remember they're talking big deal, possibly the first black president, right? And I remember when they interviewed Colin Powell. This was like maybe
I thought he was going to be the first.
So it was 2 or 3 years after the 2000 election, and a lot of people thought he was going to run in the 2000 election as a Republican, right?
I did too.
And he did an interview, I think it was on 2020, and one of the things he straight up said was, he thought about his family and what it was going to be like, and he pretty much straight up said, he goes, the country, and his wife felt the same way, is that the country really wasn't ready for a black president in the early 2000s, right? And then so I was just like, well, I wonder how Obama knew it maybe the country was ready, 8 years later, right? And so it was interesting. So they and so I did some research. So in 2008, right before the election, they did multiple studies, but the average composite was 76% of the country said that the country was ready for a black president.
So there was.
So that what was interesting is in just 2 years prior, that was probably during the primary season, or just kind of the run up to figuring out who the candidates were going to be. It was a full 14 points lower. So it went up 14 points.
And not that they didn't want a black president. It was, is America ready?
Yeah. And that's, it was simply, is the country ready? But by the time, so when they started running it, when Obama pretty much was like, they pretty much knew he was going to run during the primaries, it was a full 14 points lower. But right before the election, when they ran it multiple times, it went up to 76%, right? So I was like, all right, that's our baseline, right? The country saying, yes, we're ready. So now they've done multiple studies. Now, the thing that was interesting that even with those numbers, Michelle Obama still did not think the country was going to be ready. And she says, like, one of the reasons why I agreed to support Barack's run for president was that deep down I was like, there's no way he's going to win. And we can just sort of get out of the way. And I can be that supportive wife going, oh, honey, you tried. Okay, now let's go back to our lives as usual. And so it's like she did not even think. That's how, like, in her mind, she didn't think the country was ready. But that was at 76%, right? So in recent studies, so there's been multiple studies, right? So there was a Politico morning poll that was recently run. If you had to put a percentage of the people they asked, is the country ready for a gay president, what percentage would you say that this poll found?
And what year was this?
This is a couple weeks ago. It was a Politico morning poll right now. So because they did it.
Is it higher or lower than Barack's? Oh, come on, give me a hint. I'm gonna say. Not that they support, is the country ready? I'm going to say...
It was the same question, just for gay.
I'm just going to guess here 60%. I have no idea.
45%.
That's kind of low.
Yeah.
Well, but how many people did they survey? They didn't survey... I always find that interesting about the surveys, that people say, well, the survey says this. I never get surveyed. Do you ever get surveyed? No, I'm serious.
Let's see here.
I no longer trust polls after the 2016 election.
Well, that was actually an interesting. There was a big thing about why, and we'll do that's different.
Well, no, I'm not saying that it's not accurate. I'm just talking about, like, anytime I hear these polls or anything, these surveys, and I'm like, why in the world should I take your? I mean, I'm not saying they're wrong, but why should we take your word for it? I mean, like how off they were. I mean, couldn't be more.
Yeah, I'd have to fully kind of break it down. Let me check it out one more time. Actually, here's the PDF for it. Because what was interesting was, so they interviewed almost 2,000 people.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a pretty sizable end, as we call it.
Did they ever say, like, where do they get the 2,000 people? Is it from a certain city? Is it
from
a certain
it's
group of people?
1,997 registered voters. It was
like
done.
A certain county.
It was done at the end of October. I mean, it would take me forever to kind of go back kind of into this and everything. Yeah. I mean, Politico is a pretty neutral. I mean, it's a pretty good poll. I mean, like I mean, they're trying. I mean, usually,
I mean, and I'm not saying they did this, but
yeah.
you and I could go
Oh
to
yeah.
Yankee Stadium and be like, and take a poll and say, hey, who do you think the best baseball team is in
Well,
Major Leagues?
it's one of those things. I mean, like once
Wow,
again, we'd have to go.
99% said Yankees are the best team. Like, shocker. I'm
Yeah,
not saying they did
well,
that, but
you have to look at like I mean polls like this. I mean once again we can go in there to the psychometrics of it and see if
Mhm.
there's any sampling bias. But I mean usually if they're publishing their data, that means then you can sit there and look at it
I
and kind
know,
of go,
I know. What I'm saying is just in general, not to get on this whole thing, but I feel like that the media in general has kind of turned into the internet, where now everybody has their opinion, and if I'm not saying it's all lies, but I'm just saying it's not as, at least not perceived to be as reliable as it used to be.
mm,
And I don't even know if it's perceived. I think it's just a fact. I think there's not, as people have too many agendas. They're not, people aren't just there to report the news or report results. Maybe in this case they are, but in general terms speaking, most of the media outlets and the articles that you read and
actually
even
it's a
the
pretty
stats,
even 42% Democrat, 35% were Republican. Um 12 said they're more independent and don't have an opinion. So I mean,
yeah,
it's pretty down the middle, you know. And if anything, the fact that they sampled slightly more Democrats, which tend to be more liberal leaning, actually technically would really kind of make you wonder. Now, here's what was interesting: when they go, "Do you think the country's ready for a black president?" It was 50%. What about
mm,
your neighbor? It's probably like 46%. Said that there. So when they asked it about themselves, they almost kind of bumped it up by 5 or 6%. But then when they asked it about your neighbor, I was like, oh, it's like
nah,
46%.
he's an
So I
asshole.
mean, so think about it,
He's a
right?
bigot. He doesn't
So
want anything.
so really, that is a full 24 to 30% lower than the same question asked about
But
black. And so when you brought up the whole thing of do people not care anymore, the data isn't
the,
necessarily supporting that. That
when it comes to these polls, though, and then this poll is a little bit different. They need to stop asking Republicans or Democrats, because I feel like the majority of them are going to vote for their party, right? What they need to be surveying and polling when it comes to things like this, or just presidential election in general, if they really want to kind of get a pulse of the people in it, which would have worked in 2016 had they done it right, is they need to poll people that are on the fence, people that are independent, or people that have said, okay, I have voted both Democrat and Republican in my lifetime. So people who you have a legitimate shot of, like me, I I voted both Republican and Democrat in you know a couple elections now, and
I mean, you gotta look at they try to. I mean, I've been called for polls. I mean, they do. I mean, it's literally. I mean, when we're looking at, I mean, you gotta look at like when we do research and research design. I mean, your whole research, I mean, literally is about how do I have avoid sampling bias, sampling error.
I know.
The thing with I mean, just not to get sidetracked, but the reason why the Trump one was so wrong had nothing to do with sampling bias or error. It had to do with what they called the lean-in vote. People weren't readily admitting that they were going to vote for Trump. They had this whole they called it the lean-in vote. They had this congressman from it was like the south side of Philly. And they are asking him like, "Hey man, how's things looking?" And Van Jones was actually asking him, and he goes, "Man, I'm getting a lot of lean-ins." And he goes, "What do you mean lean-ins?" Well, when you ask them who they're going to vote for, "Oh, I'm going to vote for Hillary," but then like 3 seconds later, they go, "Hey man, I think I'm going to vote for Trump."
Yeah.
And so that was one of the big ones because what was interesting was that
Who told you that? Van Jones?
it was on CNN. Yeah, it was a South Philly congressman. When he was polling his people and his constituents,
Yeah.
that's what they said. He called them lean-in votes because they weren't readily admitting they're going to vote for him, and so that was one of the big reasons. Because what was interesting, the polls that were most accurate were they were these longitudinal design, meaning instead of going and getting new people, they just followed and they kept going back to the same people and asked them, "Has your vote changed?" And so those were the most accurate, like Nate
There you
Silver of
go.
538. Those were the most accurate because this election was the first election where it wasn't like people's minds were made up. People were constantly changing their mind. And he figured out if you really want to get an idea of where this election is, follow those same people and see who's changing their mind. And ironically, those were the most accurate polls.
Well,
Um,
do you think that Mayor Pete? Do you think he believes he can win? I know they all say they think they can win.
I don't think anybody goes through what they go through without thinking that they're going to lose.
You don't think that some of them go, you know what? I know I can't win this in this cycle, but I can get my name out there, and then that way 4 years from now or 8 years from now, I can come back and now I'm a familiar face, and then I have a better chance. Because how many times have we seen that where somebody runs for president, they don't win, and they come back another election 4, 8, 12 years later, and they run and either at least do better or they end up winning. I mean, I kind of feel like it's almost just like, well, I just want to get my name out there and just kind of, not always, but I think some of these people that have a real long shot, they all want to win. And maybe in their heart of hearts, they think they actually have a chance. But I think realistically, they know, hey, it's going to be an uphill battle, but this would be good for my, almost good for my portfolio.
I would say not anymore, because you got to look at primaries are spending almost $100 million.
But here's what's funny though. When I
would you spend $100 million just to go?
I'm not spending $100 million. No.
I think
the big donors and the people that contribute money.
There's no way. I mean, I think I disagree. And now I could maybe see.
Hold on. I think they love going on these talk shows because you have to have a pretty big ego to be in politics. I think most of the time.
Well, you're narcissistic if you run for president.
But don't you think that a lot of these people, or some of these people, they love to go on these talk shows after they have dropped out of the presidential election, and it could be a week later, it could be 10 years later, because what does it say underneath their name? So it will say Mike Devine, and it'll say a former presidential candidate. Well, when I ran for president, I think it boosts up their ego.
I mean, all of it's. I mean, not all of it. I mean, a lot of it's could be for your ego, but I think
they love that.
I just don't. I look at. I think where I disagree was that it is so brutal to run. There's no way you would do it just to do it. There's so many other better ways.
Not just to do it, but I think a lot of them realistically know, hey, it's. I'm probably not going to win this time, but it's good to get my name out there, get my profile up, get my and that way, if they do have to run a re-election for the Senate or governor or Congress, oh well, so and so. I mean, he almost was president, or she was almost president. Clearly, we need to re-elect them into Congress for the 17th.
See,
term.
Actually, the research shows the opposite. Once you've already lost, your people's image of you is now a loser.
Like
so really, it's the opposite.
The governorship in California.
That was one of the things we learned about in social psych, is that the worst thing that could ever happen is you're like the also ran, because it's kind of
like John Kasich though. He's hotter now than he's ever been in a lot of ways. I mean, he lost the election.
Yeah, but he'll never. If he runs though, he'll always, like, that's what the research shows. Like,
I know, but I'm just saying though. People, all of a sudden, Kasich, he's...
Yeah, but he's nowhere to be found. I mean, he's still not running. And if you were to run, it's the guy that ran and lost to Trump. That's the problem, is that once you've run and you've lost...
Well, everybody that ran against Trump lost, technically. I mean, Trump
put it this way,
defeated like 30 candidates in a way.
I'd have to check my numbers and math. I'd have to go back and double check it. But if I recall correctly from grad school, there's never been a single candidate that has ever had any higher percentage points the second time they tried running. They always have less support.
So let me ask you this. Let's say Mayor Pete, he's able to get past the obvious media bias for Warren and Biden.
Yeah.
Right? Or let's just say Biden just keels over of old age or goes to prison for breathing on some young women or whatever he does. And let's say Elizabeth Warren's tribe comes and reclaims her and scalps her.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just making a joke.
Hey, he's leading right now in Iowa and who are the first two primary states? Iowa and not New Hampshire. She's leading in New Hampshire, but he's leading Iowa and somewhere else.
I don't even know.
It's weird because if you look at the numbers of like the first, like the before the Super Tuesday, it's like Mayor Pete's leading in 2, Elizabeth Warren is leading in 1, Bernie's leading in 1. It's like they're all leading in 1. There's literally been no consolidation, but the thing is, what always happens is that whoever wins those first gets some big momentum, and then what happens after there?
So anyway, let's say Mayor Pete gets the nomination.
All right.
What homophobic thing does Donald Trump say about Mayor Pete? Now, he won't come out and say it, but what does he say?
I don't know.
How does he phrase that?
But here's the deal. All right. So when I asked kind of people, the people I was actually interested in talking to were baby boomers.
Boomer.
Okay, boomer, right?
Please tell me you said that at least once.
Nah, I know you nice about it. So I asked them, I was like, well, because among the younger people are, the more open they are, right? So I asked them straight up, do you think the country is ready for a gay president? And then number 2, and what was interesting was that I asked the question in a way where it's like, if like they didn't like Trump, would they vote for Mayor Pete at the expense, And
Right.
so the people that were basically, most of them were independents, where they voted for Democrat, they voted for Republican. They more kind of vote just more who they think the best candidate is. When I asked them, hey, do you think the country is ready? Majority of baby boomers were like, no, I do not think the country is ready. Then I go, are you okay with a gay president? And it was interesting. I would say half of them were kind of like, well, I don't know if the country is ready, but if they're the right candidate, I really don't care all that much about it.
Yeah.
However, though, male baby boomers were very interesting questions on the answers on this one. So if they were, I mean, evangelicals, they were completely against it. They could never vote for a gay president. I mean, I'm talking down to like, I don't care if the other person was, Muslim. I don't care if the other person was, I think a reprehensible person.
Yeah.
They ranked being homosexual like as like a carnal sin, and they just couldn't do it, right? But the
Okay.
ones that were kind of in the middle, right? When I asked them, like, so, would you vote? And the ones that it was about, I interviewed about 20 people. Okay, I would say about 10 were kind of like, I don't really give a shit. 5 were kind of like, well, I don't know. And I asked, well, why, I don't know, like, what is it? And they're like, well, and one of them used the example of Ellen. So he goes, so for example, I loved Ellen's show,
Mhm.
this one person said. And then Ellen came out. I'm like, all right, cool. We all knew she was gay anywhere. But the thing that they go, what I hated was the show all of a sudden became everything was gay. Everything was gay stuff. They mentioned even Roseanne. Roseanne became a big advocate for LGBT. And once again, no, I don't give a shit, the person said. They go, the whole show became about gay this, lesbian this, gay this, right? And every time I turn on TV during a certain time period, it's like I felt like I felt like I was being rammed down my throat. And I go, my biggest concern is that they're asking us to be more open and empathic and understanding, which I agree with. This person said, but they go, what I worry is that they're not going to have the same understanding and compassion and understanding of we grew up in a different era and maybe we're not as far along as you guys would want us to be, and can they not respect that? And
Yeah.
and they said if Mayor Pete started ramming it down the throats of people of gay this, gay this, gay that, gay pride this, and almost to where it's like, are you going to be present to gay people first and righting a wrong from the past, or are you going to be a present to all of us?
Yeah. Well, it's like the whole ABC. Remember my old ABC Family, or the channel ABC
Oh
Family.
yeah.
That story I used to have. Now I think it's the Freeform channel now.
Yeah.
And I'd say it real quick, but like maybe 2 years ago, they're watching Wreck-It Ralph or something on TV with my son.
Yeah.
And they have commercials every 10 minutes. You know how it is. And this is the ABC Family channel, right? It should be up there. It shouldn't have anything controversial. Shouldn't have anything. It's the Family channel.
Yeah.
Like, holy cow, like, right? It's not MTV. This is, CNN. This isn't anything else. This is. So we're watching Wreck-It Ralph, and on the commercials, one of the first, the first commercial they show, or every commercial break is for one of their television shows. They have this exclusive ABC Family show about I think it's a bunch of orphans or kids that don't have parents, or I don't know what it is. I can't remember what it was. I vaguely remember it, and it was about these teenagers, and it was 2 young boys, probably about 13 maybe, and they were dealing with their sexuality, and it was like one was kissing the other one. It was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this. And this is in the commercial.
Yeah.
Now, I don't have a problem with this being addressed. I mean, this is a natural, everyday thing of life. Just like I don't have a problem with a boy kissing a girl or a girl kissing a girl, right? It is what it is. What I didn't appreciate was that they had commercials, and it was every commercial. I mean, it's with commercials, it's like a 2-hour film. They have commercials every 10 or 12 minutes or whatever. They showed this commercial every time they showed it. So in the course of 2.5 hours, I probably saw this commercial with a boy kissing another boy probably a dozen times.
Yeah.
And again, it doesn't offend me. It doesn't offend me.
Yeah.
Right? I just didn't think that they should have anything sexual, hetero, homosexual, at all on the ABC Family channel. Like, that's inappropriate no matter which way you look at it. And I was just, so I think what I'm getting to is I think that people are worried that it's going to become, you will listen to this, you have to listen to this.
Yeah.
And it's not that they're going to repress heterosexual rights or feelings.
Yeah. And that's what the baby boomer, the people I talk to, it's not that.
It's not, again, for me, me as a quote unquote swing vote, it's not that I don't want to hear about your homosexuality. I don't want to hear about your heterosexuality.
Mhm.
I don't want to hear about your sexuality at all,
Yeah.
period. Across the board. Like, do I really want to hear about Donald Trump telling me about him and Melania and this? I got to tell you, buddy, I don't want to picture Donald Trump in
Oh,
any kind
hell
of
no. Oh,
compromising position.
no.
Now, Melania, on the other hand, no. But I'm just saying that
Yeah.
I think that's what people, and again, not that I'm worried about it, but I think people kind of say, I use my ABC Family because I'm still hot about that because
Yeah.
I'm like ABC Family. You're the fan, not why because it's gay. No, because you're the family channel. You shouldn't have anything sexual on there, especially when you're during Wreck-It Ralph or
Mhm.
whatever we were watching, a cartoon that you know a little kid's gonna be watching. Like I thought that was really poor taste, and it makes people go, like, what the fuck, man? Like, what are you trying to pull here? Like, how is this the family channel, not
Yeah.
regular ABC Family Channel? They've changed it to Freeform now, but I've bitched about it on the show before. My wife thinks I'm crazy for that. I'm like, am I that old to be offended here? Again, just because
It's
it's
the
like,
Miracle Way, man. Rebrand. It's like Time Warner,
well,
now
I
Spectrum.
didn't understand that, and I was just like, I don't care that
Yeah.
you have like this is important subject matter that is going to be helpful to a lot of young gay teens who want to come out or confused
Yeah.
about their sexuality. I just didn't like that you had it on that channel during Wreck-It Ralph that
Yeah.
I don't want to have to explain this to my 2 or 3-year-old of Daddy, why is that boy kissing the other boy?
Mhm.
I don't want to have to explain to him why anyone's kissing anyone. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to explain like nothing sexual on any level should be and I think that's part of what people are concerned about
Yeah.
is they think that like I don't know, the gay people are going to be coming and they're going to, there's going to be a gay parade in their hometown down their street. I don't know.
It's no, the thing is,
It's like the irrational
yeah.
fear.
It's I mean, and the thing is, like, I think why it's important to discuss it is this is what a lot of swing voters or older swing voters kind of feeling, but
They fear
it's
the
telling.
worst. They fear the worst.
Well, what's interesting is what's telling is that even though they're kind of like, I don't care, you do just get this sense of, the way, once again, the way this person worded it was just that I'm worried they're not going to show the same compassion and understanding for our values as they want us to have for theirs. And all I wanted was to be equal. And I worry about that, this person said. All right. And I had multiple people kind of say that, but this one person, like, people danced around, but this person went right for it. Right.
Yeah.
And that's where it's kind of like, what is there to really learn from this? Right. And I think, I think growing up in the place that we grew up, Bill, the thing I loved about Columbus was that it's down the middle. It's pretty much 50-50, right? Democrat, Republican.
Downtown is more liberal.
Yeah, I mean,
further outside you get Columbus. It's
the exurbs, as they call it.
Yeah.
You gotta look at. I mean, Columbus is one of the gay capitals of the country.
So the third largest behind Miami and San Fran, I think.
Yeah. And so, I mean, we had lesbians grew up across the street from us. Well, at least across from my house where we grew up on our street. And
remember when we were kids, we used to like try to spy on their fence.
What are they doing back there?
Yeah, when they had parties, like
it was
like
hot tub
it was like the
parties.
80s, and we didn't know a lot about what lesbians were.
I know.
You did,
All I
but
know is
you
lots of
didn't.
girls, and they loved the hot tub back there.
Yeah, and we were like
Jeez.
trying to, what's going on? 10 years old, what's going on back there? I don't know.
And we would have been like 15 realizing. It would have been awesome,
yeah.
right?
You do that today, it's like a felony. But,
I know.
we were like 10.
But I think we grew up, and I remember my parents were always just like, "Oh yeah, it's the lesbians across the street." And
Yeah.
I think we grew up like, and when we had Leon on, we were talking about race, and I think a lot of times we almost grew up like colorblind or sexuality blind, and almost like it's not an issue, but it's like, well, no.
People didn't. Well, I think with the African Americans, versus say the gay community, if not everyone, but some people in the gay community can hide
Mhm.
being gay. Like
Yeah.
there are some people that are more flamboyant,
Yeah.
if you want to call it that, or more quote unquote obvious, or so that to appearance that you think they're gay.
Yeah.
But there's some people you by looking at them you don't know, by talking to them you don't know, you might not have any idea for one reason or another.
Yeah.
You can't hide being African American.
Oh, yeah.
Like and that's what I was saying earlier about the differences in the struggle. And I'm not saying that like one's worse off
It's
than
just
the other.
different. It's just different. It's just different struggles.
It's different, but it's like you could walk down the street and if you're a gay person and quote unquote hide in plain sight. We talked about how the military, when they had Don't Ask, Don't Tell, how many thousands upon thousands of servicemen and women did that for how many years? Like you said,
But I think the
double
question,
lives.
the question I have though, and this is the thing that
Which
we're
sucks
not.
they had to do. It really is. But,
Well, that's just it's just the way that it is, and it's not right. But it's just interesting how, why there's a full 20 point over 20. There's a 26 point difference between people thinking the country is ready for a black president
Mhm.
versus people thinking the country is ready for a gay president. And we have a candidate, and it is one of the things that I pointed out to the person that I was talking to, where there was a concern. I go, but the thing is, you look at Mayor Pete, like he's dancing around even using the word gay. I mean, he
Yeah.
literally is kind of. You can see him being kind of careful and
Well,
cognizant and tiptoeing around it.
maybe he's smart about it. Maybe he's looking at the average voter, who, like someone like me, who's this is I don't good, great, you're great, great. I don't care.
But this is why I wanted to bring it up on the show, is because I think if he has that mindset, he will lose,
I think so.
because there's a 26-point difference between people thinking the country is ready, and so the biggest that is going to be a fatal, catastrophic mistake if they automatically assume because nobody talks about it, it's not a big deal, because what the data clearly shows is that there's a 26-point difference in between when people in 2008, 76% country's ready for a black president. 2019, 46% of the country thinks the country is ready for a gay president. And think about, no one's talking about it.
Yeah.
And even like there's something wrong when we're two straight guys, right? And two white straight guys. And I get uncomfortable wanting to talk about race or sexuality because I'm going to get attacked.
I gotta tell you,
people are going to think we're right. I'm like, I hate that.
I'm already like worried about what I've said on the show, and I don't think I've said anything terribly wrong, but just saying some of the things I said that I think are fact, or at least strong opinion.
Yeah.
I feel like someone's going to take it the wrong way, or say like, "Oh, you're terrible. You're a bigot. You're this," and I'm saying, "Well, no, I'm not." Like I keep having to say, not that I'm this or that, but it's just my opinion. There's no hate behind any of this at all.
This is where we're at, though, and this is where I'm going to kind of close things off with the show. That
just for the record, I don't really like straight people and white people. I don't really like gay people or minority. I don't like anybody. I mean, I do, but I don't have any preference of who I like or don't like. Like, it's all about who you are as a person and what you represent. Like, I just for the record, I don't want anyone to misconstrue.
And that's where it's
like, it sucks that I even have to say that,
but that's where we're at as a country, man. It's when we've gone like, so it's weird. Like I always say the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and this whole thing about we can't discriminate against everyone, which how it should be, everyone is equal, but we've gotten so politically correct that that's offensive, that's racist, that's misogynist. Now we've created to where we can't talk about it. People that aren't in that group
can't talk
about it. And so it's not a coincidence that no one on the news is talking about whether or not the country's ready for a gay president. I felt uncomfortable talking about it, and I have like tons of gay clients, I have gay friends. Like I don't care, right? I feel comfortable talking about race, talking about all this, right? But the reality is, if you look at the data, overwhelmingly, there's a giant gap in where we were in 2008. And we have to sit there and kind of take a step back and go, we have to learn to be able to talk about this, even if you're not in the in-group, whether it be talking about it, asking questions, right? Getting an understanding of it and not being afraid to feel like you're being racist, because I have questions I want to ask. There's things that I would like to know, but out of that fear, I feel weird talking about it on the air, but we have to, because as I learned as a therapist, the second we stop talking about things that make us uncomfortable, the worse it gets, and the bigger a gap gets in a misunderstanding. And Mayor Pete needs to start talking about it. He needs to implore people. We need to start asking questions, because if he doesn't get that gap different, and start getting it where more people feel like the country is all right, then he's going to be in a world of hurt. But the thing is, where I look at the answer, though, is in 2006, before Obama really became a known entity, there was a 16-point gap between. So it was at 76. So that means it was at 60% in 2006 before he started running, which meant that when he started, people started getting to know him, understand him, see who he was. All of a sudden, people started going, hey, I think the country is ready.
Well, don't you think that's different, though? And what I mean by that is like, physical appearance. And what I mean by that is not the color of their skin or anything like that. But, when you look at Obama, you know that he's African-American, especially if you've never had a black president, whether you're for Obama, against Obama, when you would see him speak, that's African-American. That's what you would see.
I see.
With Mayor Pete, though, while you might know he's gay, and I don't know if everyone does, maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't think that when you look at him, you think gay or
Yeah, I
like,
think it's less
you know,
about him
that's what
knowing
I'm
it,
thinking. I don't know.
but but I think it's more down to
Like when you look at
when they ask people.
when you look
Is
at when
it
they look at you and I, if people that are non-white per se, I guess, would be like, oh, those are two white guys.
see? The thing is, I think the appearance factor really doesn't play into all that much because
No, I think subconsciously is what I'm saying. I
well,
think
it's when we start
it's
getting like implicit bias,
yeah.
about race and gender. But the thing is, like,
You can almost forget that Mayor Pete's gay.
but
You can't
see,
forget
I think
that
though, I
Barack
think if that,
Obama's an African American.
but I think if that dynamic were really happening, and I get where you're going with it, but I think if that dynamic were really true,
Mhm.
the data would be in the opposite direction. People wouldn't give, like, the numbers would be higher if people thinking the country is ready, but it's the opposite. So the whole idea of understanding if someone's gay or not, what they look
Well,
like, obviously doesn't play because if it did, it would be, I think the numbers would be better. It wouldn't make any sense that the numbers would actually be worse for something that you don't even really know. Where what I think the dynamic you're not thinking about is you can't pick your race. A lot of people out there think you can pick your sexuality,
you can't pick your
but
sexuality.
a lot of people believe that though,
Well,
man.
I mean, really, did someone show up to you with the menu at puberty and say, "Hey"?
But you got to look at that Judeo-Christian viewpoint of faith.
I know, but I'm just saying though. Like,
But that's you and I talking.
No, okay, but realistically, the educated American knows that you don't really
Dude,
pick.
You would be honestly. I think you're making a gross miscalculation. I know a lot of people that are Southern Baptists that have college education. Dude, I know a lot of people.
Street smart. I don't know.
Dude,
you can have all the degrees you want, but it doesn't mean you have common sense. Listen, I understand his opinion. I don't want to get into a whole religious.
I think you need to go down to Texas and understand the religious right. And there's so many educated, very intelligent people who feel it's choice. I got into an argument with a neuropsychologist.
You could put a briefcase down full of cash for $1 million, $5 million, $25 million, and they say, you know what, you need to choose to be gay, and not just choose to be gay. You need to choose to like.
I agree with it. I agree with it.
I couldn't like it. I mean,
I know. I don't understand it, but the reality is, like, dude, I got in an argument with a neuropsychologist. Or I'm sorry, a neuropsychiatrist, a medical doctor about this, and his own sister was gay, and
he thought that
he still thought it was choice.
Just trying to stick
dude,
it to him.
It's mind numbing. Literally, I can throw out, dude,
baby sister Janet, trying to ruin Thanksgiving.
Dude, I would even throw out information, data. I mean, dude, there's a big swath, and I think that's a thing that's understated. Is that that's where I think race and sexuality is different. Is that because it's biblical? You don't see. I mean, it's like they're saying it's biblical, that it's immoral, it's choice, it's a sin. And dude, that's a whole tie to sexuality. And the thing is, that's what makes it even more fucked up. Is that people are almost saying you're ungodly, right? And that's going to be a tough thing. He's not going to get that vote at all. Now, typically, most of that vote would go in, I think, the conservative vote anyway. Yeah. But it's just interesting that I think homosexuality and is that there's a reason why the numbers are so much lower. But I think but in there though is it's what's the problem that's plaguing this country is that we have to be able to talk about it. We have to be able to understand. And I think Pete needs to come out and be proactive with it, because if he doesn't and he miscalculates that the country doesn't care and it's not that big of a deal, is a miscalculation. I was shocked. I did not think it was going to be in the 50s. Well, I was thinking the way you were.
I think if you start seeing him fade in the polls or start falling behind, I think he might play the quote unquote gay card more. Do you think so? I think like a Hail Mary, like, hey,
you gotta look at everything is like in sports now, it's analytics and stats driven. I mean, literally, they don't make a decision that's not rooted in analytics and data. There's no data out there that would say that would be a good play. Yeah. You know, and I think and that's the thing where I think if you listen to what the boomers were saying, even though you hear some of it and you go like, come on, like, really? But I think the one thing you have to look at, man, is that their answers were surprising, but then what they also gave a solution was if he just comes out and just sticks to the issues, I think those votes would then go. And those were people that voted for Trump that have voted for Democrat in the past. So now,
do you think the fact that gay people getting married has been legalized, do you think that helps or hurts his campaign, if at all?
I mean, I mean, I think that that has helped in a bigger one because I think if maybe
You
if
think
we
it,
were like
you
5 years ago, the number would probably be 30%. So
I think
it's
it
definitely
helps.
helped. It's
You
just,
think so?
I mean, it had because it normalized
Well,
it.
I think it right. I think it normalized it, but I feel like almost in a weird way, and I could be wrong. Like, let's say like it was still not
Hmm.
legal nationwide. You still had like, a few states here. I know Hawaii was the first one to
Yeah.
legalize gay marriage and everything, which is strange because we think of Hawaii. I've been there. You've been there,
Hmm.
and you think of this kind of this sleepy vacation resort type thing, and they're pretty forward thinking. I give Hawaii a lot of credit there. They're so
Actually, it doesn't surprise me at all.
yeah.
If you look at any Polynesian, Asian culture, extremely bigoted. And I have a client right now whose family, they're Vietnamese or they're Korean, and he hasn't talked to his dad in 3 years
Wow.
because his dad made, and he goes like, "You're not changing that culture's view of it." And so that doesn't surprise me at all because it's a mishmash of that Asian kind of culture, even though it's been more Americanized.
But so so Mayor Pete gets a little bit of a bump because you think because the gay marriage is legalized
I
nationwide,
don't think necessarily he gets a bump. I just think
it makes
that
it more normalized. More
it's more
normalized. Don't you think
I
though?
think he's able to run now because of all that, and it's been normalized. Just like you see a lot of Southern Baptist parents that typically would have abandoned their kids if they said they were gay, and then kind of going, even though I don't agree with it, I'm not abandoning my kid. A shift happened probably about like 5, 6 years ago. I noticed in my practice because when I was in Texas, I had a lot of Southern Baptist clients. It's Texas, and there was a shift where you saw a lot of parents where they were completely against it. Then all of a sudden, the parents were like, well, I'm not going to give up on this, or I'm not going to abandon my kid, 'cause that goes completely against what I believe.
Yeah.
And that was only about 5, 6 years ago. So it's been a shift. The reason why it's legal is because there's been a shift. But just like with Colin Powell, the country wasn't ready in 2000. The country was ready in 2008. So it's just, is Mayor Pete at that time to where he can then do what Obama did?
I
He
still
brings
think
all the numbers up.
I think if gay marriage was not legal nationwide, I think it would actually help Mayor Pete because he could then get on that platform, whether he says it or people just believe it. Because why would you not? Because he's going to be president. That hey, if this guy gets elected, man, he's going to legalize gay marriage. Like people can really get behind that cause. Like I was all for gay marriage, still
Mhm.
am. I think that's the right thing to do. I'm so glad, and so happy that they passed that. I mean,
I think,
we should have done that.
I-
It should have always been like that, really. But we should
yeah.
have done that years ago. I feel like he could have been whether even though he was maybe not there preaching about it in all his
Mhm.
speeches or stumping on that, everyone would have seen that. Been like, listen, if Mayor Pete gets elected, he's gonna help legalize gay marriage, being the first gay. And I feel like that would have really
I mean, I
really
get where you're.
energized the
I mean,
base.
I get where you're coming from with it.
Yeah,
I think the only thing is like it's kind of like that's so downstream of what the dynamics were
I
that
know.
created it. So it's kind of like, of course, I mean, would he have gotten a bump? I mean, I don't think so because that means that the country would have been. The only reason gay marriage got legalized was because it became more socially acceptable and people didn't care
Well,
as much.
it was that, and because people were suing because they wanted to get
Yeah, I mean, because it
benefits
would have been
and
5 years ago. He
their
wouldn't even been.
spouse.
I don't think he would have even had the support in the primaries.
I'm
So
just saying
it's
though, like I kind of feel like long term though, like you said, playing long ball, like
yeah.
he could have really that may have and now it's almost like in a strange way, like I said, now that it's become normalized,
Yeah.
where 10 years ago it would have been like a really 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 big deal, and it still is a big deal.
I think his support
But
would have
but
been like
but
10%
now
though. I
now
mean,
people are more like, oh, you're gay, great. So what's your
but I
dinner?
think the truth is though that's I think we're saying that,
Hmm.
but the data is not supporting it.
Hmm.
You and I can sit here and go all day long, but that's a mistake that everyone makes. They make a claim that's not based in anything. Multiple polls all show the same thing. The country is 50-50 on whether or not the country is ready. I don't want that to be true.
You know who helped legalize gay marriage?
Gay people and politicians.
Donald Trump. It was his idea. Just listen to him. It was his idea. It's his plan from the beginning.
Yeah, but the same guy then that outlawed transgender in the military. He's really LGBT friendly. Yeah, that guy literally is like a fucking chameleon. He'll believe whatever it is that's going to get him elected. If he knew like starting a policy that would murder old soldiers because they take money and it passed with conservatives, he would be all for that. He is for whatever is going to get him elected.
Donald Trump likes his soldiers, his heroes who don't get captured. Just ask.
That's
John,
fucked though.
just ask John.
How did he
McCain.
get elected saying that? That guy was a fucking POW for like fucking 8 years, and yet make fun of the guy.
I know.
For a guy who had fucking bone spurs.
I know, my man. I know. Well, people give me shit because I supported Trump. I get it. But, give me someone better to vote for, and I'm all for it. But you can't give me a whole pile of shit and then be like, oh, you picked the wrong thing of shit. Well, it was all shit, so that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, I'm not even going to comment on that. We'll pass on that one.
Our passive aggressiveness got the best of us today, didn't it?
No, I don't think it was passive aggressive. I think it was aggressive. It's just, I don't know. That's right. I'm fired up this week because I'm all about facts and statistics, and I don't know.
People are going to give us some shit on social media.
I know they're going to. I mean, like, the thing is, like, honestly,
they're calling for my boycott.
But here's the funny thing. I think I'm gonna do a test on this. I will get more shit from the LGBT liberal community than I will the conservatives, because I'm not probably saying something right.
I think they're more outspoken in general.
Yeah, I just think I'll get more shit from them, even though like I didn't say all. Like, I literally am trying to help Pete.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help Pete. You need to take this into account, and I'm gonna get shit on by the far left. That seems like it always is. I get more shit from the far left.
They're more outspoken in general.
I know, they're fucking idiots. It seems like, because like
you said that, not me.
Hey, all I gotta say is if I have one more person yell at me for something and then even fucking listen, I had to say, like, I fucking agreed with you, ass clown. Like, listen to the fucking show. How did I get on this page anyway? Because you fucking clicked on it. I mean, Jesus.
How did I get on this page?
Literally, you fucking clicked on it. Like, what do you mean?
Russia tricked you into clicking on this. They influenced you to click and comment. It's a fact.
Or the enemy, the Ukraine. I hope the enemy takes that $500 million and gets better at trying to rig the next election.
No, Mike, I told you, there's a lot of ins, a lot of outs, a lot of what happened.
Oh, there wasn't a lot of ins and outs with Iran, though, right?
No, that's clear cut. This Ukraine thing is way, way above your head. We don't have enough time in the program for me to explain it,
next
time.
We'll talk about this next week. A parting shot of. So don't you think it's kind of coincidental that that Saudi Arabia, we have a program?
Don't even start
dude,
with that.
We have a program, and this. I'm just saying, this is a guy that literally takes every opportunity to trash every single program that somehow didn't work out the previous administration. This one was clearly started by previous administration, but did not say a single negative thing about it, and it elicited a terrorist attack. And there was a loophole. This guy, you can't get a license to buy a gun, and you're an international, but yet somehow there's a loophole to where you're a foreign person and you can say you're doing it for hunting and you get a gun. And the thing is, the Second Amendment people can't say it's about taking guns away from American citizens, because that rule would then only affect people who are not American citizens. I'm just saying it's kind of funny. The shoes on here.
Real quick, Mayor Pete doesn't have to worry, is America ready for a gay president? He only has to worry about between 55 to 60% of America, because that's only the percentage that votes. So that's all he's got to win over. It doesn't matter if America's ready for it. So all the people that don't vote, doesn't matter.
Yeah, but you got to look at 75% of the country said they were ready, and Obama didn't win by 75%.
No, I'm talking about the percentage that actually voted, the eligible voters of the voting age.
So what was interesting, that one study, only 5% said they don't vote. So of all of them, they were all voted. They were all registered voters.
Well, they say they vote.
You got to go off of studies.
But the people they polled in 2016, all the polls said Trump was losing too. So it's you gotta say if you have multiple data points and you account for certain areas, but it's all I can say is, like, I think the data is legit, especially after I talk to people, and if he doesn't listen to this, if he doesn't actually really address this thing, it's like he's gonna be in a lot of trouble. So he has to talk about it. But as a country, we have to talk about it. We have to talk. We can't be afraid to talk about our differences, especially when we're not part of that group. And we have to stop that, because how can you be heard if people that you're trying to have listen to you are afraid to talk with you or afraid to say anything? It's kind of an issue. You would make Mayor Pete more interesting if his husband was the gay guy from Talladega Nights, The Ballad of Ricky Bobby.
Oh, yeah.
Ricky Bobby.
Yeah, that would be kind of interesting. Yeah, anyhow.
One can dream, can't they?
They probably could, man. On that note, let's get the hell out of here.
Folks, we appreciate your patience and your humor.
Our bickering.
Yeah. And, not taking things too seriously.
We can argue. We model how to argue. We try
to have fun, too, but not sticking to the base.
We're still friends.
Yeah,
I think you're a fucking idiot sometimes, but, we're still friends, right?
Well, some people we act like morons, but we are morons, so it kind of works out.
That is
So.
true, yeah. All right, on that note, everyone, I'm Michael Devine. This is Gray Matters Radio on the 614 Radio Network.
All day.
All day. I'm joined by my awesome co-host, Bill, the armchair quarterback. You can catch him
I
on the
can't do
614.
that. That's the wrong. I think of the okay. You can't do
Yeah,
that.
that's white supremacist.
When did that happen?
I don't know. I think for
I
a
used
long
to be
time.
the okay. Hey, thumbs down.
Hey, like I say, the swastika was a Hindu symbol before it was a Nazi.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah.
But, geez.
But you're the armchair quarterback. You can catch him on the 614 Radio Network.
The
Fist. I'm Michael Devine. Remember, everyone, next time someone asks you Democrat, Republican, left, right, blue, green, whatever. Yeah, fuck that noise. My ass is gray. All right, everyone, you be good to each other. We'll see you next week. Peace.